Hi all, I hope you're having a fantastic day today, and I just wanted to do a follow-up video to yesterday's news video covering the recent news that BioWare has now officially confirmed that they will no longer be working on the online MMORPG Star Wars: The Old Republic, and instead will be taking those developers and staff members and be basically moving them over to the next Mass Effect as well as Dreadwolf for Dragon Age. This is obviously potentially bad news for fans of Star Wars: The Old Republic as the online MMO service, but we'll have to wait and see if the new developer Broadsword can deliver and keep the game fresh and exciting, and most of all, fun for the fans. But in my opinion, this is great news for fans of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, especially with Dreadwolf coming out potentially sooner. Since 2020, we've had very scarce news updates for both the next Dragon Age and Mass Effect games, which is quite scary to think of from our perspective as fans. As back in the 2010s, we had both Andromeda and Anthem from BioWare. Back then, Mass Effect Andromeda flopped so hard that rumours began to speculate that BioWare was actually cancelling DLC updates and future Mass Effect games entirely, with EA saying that the series was being put on ice for the time being. Back then I wasn't actually a big Mass Effect fan at all, and even I heard that news. And obviously the Anthem game died as it failed to be a live service. If you guys haven't checked it out, I actually did a retrospective video on Anthem as a live service, and recently had the majority of its services shut down sadly by EA. Again, another game by BioWare and EA recently that had so much potential that was just sadly canned. Now, flash forward to 2020, BioWare has gone from being one of the most beloved game developers of all time, being well known for, Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, the OG Mass Effect trilogy, and Star Wars: The Old Republic, to a developer that had to put out two of the worst game launches of all time because they were forced by crunch. Both games, being obviously Andromeda and Anthem, are now put in the same category as No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 in terms of bad launches. But during the Game Awards, we then got two trailers in 2020. One being an unnamed Dragon Age project, and the other obviously being the new Mass Effect game, as well as the reveal of the Legendary Edition being a remastered collection of the original trilogy Mass Effect games, being actual proper remasters that looked so much better. This was great news for BioWare fans back in 2020, as it gave people, a bit of hope that BioWare was coming back into the public eye and actually making good games again. But in my eyes, this was a risky move as the studio messed up both games, being obviously Andromeda and Anthem, and I think BioWare's reputation would be forever tarnished. However, both games looked like return to forms. We're obviously bringing back Liara for the next Mass Effect, and Dragon Age bringing back Solus. Both games hopefully returning to what fans actually liked, and it seems that BioWare are going in that direction, as I've heard loads of rumours that the next game will be set straight after the Mass Effect trilogy. After this, BioWare immediately essentially went onto Twitter. The devs actually took to Twitter to drop loads of hints, Easter eggs, and answer fan questions with cryptic teasers, with few fans even asking about Andromeda and its place in the new game, with BioWare developers actually replying to things like, oh, I want Andromeda in the next game, with things like, oh, you'll have to wait and see, which is obviously a huge, massive hint that Andromeda is returning in some way, shape, or form. Since then, the biggest news we've had was the gameplay leak video for Dreadwolf. Again, I've done a video on the channel if you guys want to go see all of that, the news in one video. I haven't actually uploaded the video, the actual gameplay, because obviously I don't want to get copyrighted, and obviously it's a leak, so it is confirmed, it's 100% confirmed, but I just don't do that on this channel. And then obviously in terms of Mass Effect, we had the secret transmission footage from N7 Day, which obviously had Liara talking to an unknown character, potentially Legion or a Geth. Again, we'll have to wait and see. As a BioWare fan, I'm seriously worried about Mass Effect and Dragon Age, but more so with Mass Effect because I'm not really a big Dragon Age fan. I've said in previous videos that I think Mass Effect will potentially be releasing in 2026, but I'm seriously now thinking 2027 or 2028, which in my opinion is way too long from reveal to release. In my opinion, games should release 1 to 2 years from reveal to release to build up hype, marketing, and etc. Obviously, I'll give, 3 years I think is okay. It's not great, but I'd rather have 3 years to 7 or 8. BioWare announcing both of these games at the Game Awards all the way back in 2020 felt like a last-ditch effort to save the studio, because I don't think a lot of people realise this, but with both EA and BioWare, they know that these games have to be good, and if both Dragon Age and Mass Effect fail, BioWare will be in serious trouble, because that will essentially be 4 games back to back, and they now won't be developing the MMO, obviously Star Wars The Old Republic, so they won't have that to fall back on. Personally, I'd want BioWare to take their time with the next games in both Mass Effect and Dragon Age as a franchise, and get them to be really high quality and well polished. A delayed game will eventually turn out to be good, but a rushed game will be forever bad, and all of that jazz. But I really want BioWare to succeed. I've grown in the past 3-4 years with actually playing their games to love them. I think Mass Effect 2 is one of the greatest video games of all time. But just going back into BioWare's statements actually on the recent blog post on the next Mass Effect game, part of me is still really excited, as I think BioWare will take all that they've learned from the Legendary Edition, the failings of Andromeda and Anthem, and put all of that into the next game. And this next game, in my opinion, could be brilliant. I have no doubt that the game will look graphically amazing, as even for their shortcomings, I think a lot of you can agree with me here that both Anthem and Andromeda both looked really great for running on a PS4 and Xbox One. But for me, it's all about the gameplay and story that I'm anxious about. I'm really more so anxious about the story. Personally, I'd love to see a combination of the modernised features in both Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, and like things like in Andromeda being able to freely switch and mix and match class abilities, essentially being a jack of all trade, whereas in the original trilogy you had to pick one class and you were stuck with that class pretty much for the entire game, and then I think you had to pay or use, it was either using materials or currency to actually switch classes. I actually can't remember. I haven't played the original trilogy in like 6 months. I'll have to replay it, so apologies for that. But bringing back some fan favourite characters wouldn't hurt either, and obviously I think mixing the Andromeda Anthem gameplay elements with the classic linear game design and obviously the original trilogy characters would make an amazing title. Personally, I'd love to see returning characters such as Tali, Rex, Garrus, Joker, and much more. I'd be half an hour video if I was to list all the characters I wanted to return from the original trilogy. But I also want BioWare not to forget about Andromeda. Yes, it's not their finest game, but it's not exactly the train wreck that a lot of you make it out to be. I think Andromeda had a lot of wasted potential, but it still has some greatness in there. Either that, or I wouldn't even mind a new protagonist for the new Mass Effect game, and a new crew, but in doing so, BioWare would have to really make these characters memorable, likeable, and personal, like those who have come before them. I think, Garrus, Tali, Jack, these are some of the most well-written characters in gaming history, and I think if, BioWare can do that for a new game, they'll be laughing. But going back to the sort of blog post again, I think it's getting a bit tiresome now, hearing basically the same phrase slightly reworded, basically hearing, "Oh, we're still working on it." Look, I understand that Mass Effect is probably years away. I think I have come to terms with that now. Dragon Age is probably looking like 2025 at this point, which is, I've heard lots of rumours about it being 2024. Some insiders have also said 2024, but again, that could all change. And although we haven't got anything concrete from BioWare yet, I think Dragon Age, with actual having gameplay leaks, is a lot better off than Mass Effect. I think Mass Effect is not in trouble, but I think they have the Kingdom Hearts 3 approach where or the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you announce a game and then it comes out 5 or 6 years later. I understand game development is taking more and more time, and again, I would rather have a more polished game, but I just really want the game. I'm a very if you know me, I'm very impatient. I'm a very impatient person, but I think that having to wait 8 years from reveal to release is a bit ridiculous. I think really it goes to show you that the only reason they made those 2 announcements was to essentially save the studio from the shareholders and EA, basically to show, yes, we're working on a new Mass Effect and Dragon Age, don't worry. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway guys, that's been my big rambly video from yesterday's news. Tell me in the comments below, what do you think, and are you excited for the next Mass Effect and Dragon Age? I'm hella excited. I cannot wait for both games. I'm definitely going to play them, even though I'm not a big Dragon Age fan, but I'm definitely going to play both of them, and I just hope that they're good. That's all I want. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next Mass Effect video. Bye.